What's a subtle sign someone has been through some shit? The maturity with which they handle unexpected events. I just had my annual performance review today and my supervisor repeatedly complimented me on this in regard to a few projects with unpredictable and unreliable clients. As a matter of fact, he said our head boss actually recommended me for those specific projects due to my history of remaining even-keeled on similar work. I was reflecting on this when I read your comment and yeah, the unpredictability and toxic environment in which I grew up totally has prepared me to deal with difficult and frustrating clients. Especially at a young age. Strange mix of pride and sadness when I watched the kid who was interviewed following a shooting outside a baseball game say that she already knows what it is like to be shot at, so she knew how to react. Not trusting people. You could be friends for years, and think you're close, but in fact, you don't have the slightest idea what's going on in their lives. They could be staying up all night, being depressed, and tomorrow morning say hello with a smile on their faces. They simply don't trust people anymore no matter what they do/don't do. I have a friend that's like this. The only thing I know about his situation is that he has shitty parents. That's all I know. I wish he could open up to me more. What are homies for? Edit, Jesus Christ. Y'all went in. I did not think I'd get this type of a reaction. Wow. Thanks y'all. If you have anything you think I might need, go ahead and talk. Edit 2. Aight boys, I got a plan. I'ma just be his homie and do everything in my power to make him forget about it. Thanks a lot to everyone who replied. This was much needed help. As someone who is like this, if you stick with them long enough they will probably start opening up more. However, them opening up can also bring some ugly emotions with it. I opened up to my two best friends and it was what started driving them away from me. To be fair, I don't think they had any idea I was hiding that part of me from them. I'm like that. Know my coworkers for a few years already but don't know where they live, their surname or phone number. We don't hang out. I'm just coworker friend and that's it. Moving into being out of work friend, not that I know how, would just mean I will get hurt eventually because they could turn into assholes, which already happened to me and I don't plan on trying again. It's not exactly nice because I'm lonely, but it's otherwise safe psychologically when I'm distant to others. It's troubling seeing new people come to work and go and acting with my old coworkers like old friends that knew each other all their lives, laughing and meeting and so forth. I guess I'm also socially stunted. They have good advice for people who've just experienced trauma, or for how to handle oddly specific and fucked up situations. Especially when talking with people about dealing with some difficult subjects like mental illness, or other horrible situations. My boss had just gotten done giving me shit for no reason, just really laying into me, and a coworker came over and I was cheerful to him. He was like, "Wow, Scylla, you don't let anything get to you." And I just said, "Nope, it all gets to me, but I just deal with it in therapy." And he thought I was joking, but I was already writing down notes on my phone so I could remember to go over it with my therapist. Honestly, this is why I became a mental health professional. Not that my trauma and my clients' trauma are necessarily the same, but I do have lived experience living with trauma. At a certain point of healing, I developed what I call my third eye. I can recognize trauma where others may not, and I am not usually afraid of it. Gives me depth perception. I don't give advice, of course, but I try to offer meaningful support and validation. Super independent because they learn not to rely on anybody. Having to parent themselves when young or raise their siblings, might not have children but is really good with them. They have already gone through that chapter, which takes their own parenting opportunities away. I wonder what's the percentage of the adults that don't want kids was due to this or went through something like this? I call it being the Swiss Army knife of humans. And yeah, it's fucked up. Makes creating relationships with other people a ton more difficult because people either see you as a know-it-all and never needing help, or they feel inferior and threatened, so they keep you at arm's length. When nothing shocks them. I had a near-death experience and it put in perspective what actually mattered to me in my life and what didn't. I used to be easily embarrassed by a lot of things and worry about what people thought about me. But embarrassment means that someone has seen or heard something about you that you didn't want them to, and that will spread into people's opinion in the future. Thing is, if you're dead, you don't have a future. So at that moment I thought to myself how stupid I was to care about those things. I wished I had spent that time and energy on the people I love or the things I wanted to do instead. After that experience, though I have a future now, I find it pretty hard to be embarrassed by most things. And if I do feel it, no way in hell would I let it stop me from doing what I need to for the people I love or myself. Ironically, after gaining that mentality, people started asking me how I could be so confident sometimes. But it's not that I'm confident. I just have things more important to me than being worried about embarrassment. I remember sliding on black ice into oncoming traffic and thinking, damn, I'm going to miss my kid's life and then this is how I die? What a letdown. And in this outfit? I hope they don't judge me for that. Ever since then, yeah, I don't care about much. I'm just grateful I got to see my boy become a man. Deleted. Preparation. Most people who've dealt with horrendous situations now prepare for the proverbial worst. I do this. I anticipate and plan for the worst. It can be as simple as bringing extra snacks on road trips or saving money in case I have an oh shit moment and I need to run. I don't know what I'd be running from, but I am ready. My friends call me mom because I'm always so over-prepared like this. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. You only have to fall down the ladder and hit every rung on the way down to learn that lesson. I went from financially stable to bankrupt over a 3-year period, thanks to 2 double lung collapses and a car wreck that shattered my hip and put me $150,000 in debt in less than 3 years in my early 20s. I'm almost 40 now. Shit like that scars you for life in more ways than one. Never asking for anything, even the bare minimum. Apologizing for things that aren't their fault even in the slightest. Never talking about their issues seriously, probably joking about it or even staying away from the topic completely. Flinching at small things. Edit. Thanks for the awards and upvotes, they're greatly appreciated. Just wanted to clear some things up. Of course, some people will do these things even without having been through shit. These are just common in a lot of people who have, myself included. When I was younger, I went shopping with my cousins. My uncle told us we could get whatever we want, so my cousins excitedly went around the store looking at whatever items there were. I literally didn't know what to do, and only got one inexpensive thing after my uncle had to constantly reassure me that it's okay if I pick out a few things I like. The reason being, anytime my parents spent money on me, whether it be for necessities, school, extracurriculars, whatever, they would throw it back in my face later on and make me feel guilty for asking for things / having money spent on me. So I eventually just stopped asking for things. 2 days ago, my dad asked me why I never ask for anything or want to buy anything ever, and I didn't even bother explaining because I didn't feel like being gaslit into believing that the things I experienced as a kid never actually happened. It sucks, but it's whatever. Edit 1. Wow, I wasn't expecting to get this many replies. I'm going to answer a few questions so I don't have to individually respond to 11 different people. Why don't you bring this up to your parents? I have. But I don't anymore because it's incredibly mentally taxing to constantly have your trauma dismissed or compared to someone else who's had it worse. Were your parents struggling financially? Without disclosing too much about my life on this app, no, we weren't. They would willingly pay for things for me, but once they get upset for some reason, it's time to throw it in our face again. I've always been the scapegoat, so I even started begging my parents not to rub stuff, expenses, grades, mental health issues, in my face, and they promised me, multiple times, that they wouldn't. But I've had basically every little mistake thrown in my face at some point or another. I'll answer more questions here if people are curious. Thanks for all the support. I've gotten teary-eyed reading your comments. We're so much more than our trauma, and I hope each and every one of you can see that. The gaslighting is real. I've heard all the greatest hits from my parents. Oh yes. When I was a substitute teacher, I met a kid with all those signs. When I had done my last day there, she gave me a flower and I tried to hug her and say, thank you. She ducked the moment I raised my arm above my waist, told a co-worker who acted fast, and the kid and all siblings got some well-needed help. Unusually bad memory for the kind of person they are. Edit. Since this is getting so much traction, I'd like to list how I personally deal with this issue. It affects my attention and information retaining abilities, so I do these steps to help with that side. 1. Communication. Tell your friends. Get them to understand that sometimes experiences won't stick with you even if you paid attention and enjoyed it. 2. Write your activities and goals down. You won't be left wondering what you did yesterday and what you wanted to do earlier that day either. Being able to refer back to that information is a lifesaver, both literally and metaphorically. Helps me stay sane. 3. Review conversations and what you may be learning from them. This is a great time to use the second tip. You can write down how you felt or how you interpreted new information. I did that today, for example, since I'm trying to learn how to set up commissions and bank accounts and whatnot. Spending some extra time at the end of the day seriously helped me retain that information. 4. Progress is slowed towards a normal memory. It's taken me like 10-ish years to be able to actually feel more like a functioning adult and less like a snail in my mental capacity. I couldn't hang on to any information besides what I needed to pass school tests and trauma. Regaining or repairing your memory takes a lot of time, much like the healing process takes a lot of time. 5. Most importantly, understand your own self. It's similar to depression, where it's very overwhelmingly discouraging and you can't put down an exact source of your issue. Accepting that makes moving forward a lot easier, since you'll spend less time beating yourself up over not having a tangible source of your issue, and more energy to try your best, since that's all you can do. My sister, 2 years younger than me, and I traded memories at Thanksgiving last year. You'd think we grew up in two separate houses with all the holes in our recollections. Suppressing emotionally charged memories, and getting other memories lost with that. That coping mechanism really sucks. Trauma leads to poor memory processing, like your brain doesn't have the RAM for all the stress constantly running in the background. Also, a lot of meds for depression, bipolar, etc., can cause a type of aphasia or poor memory recall. Topamax gave me nominal aphasia, or tip of the tongue syndrome. I used to be really good at trivia, but now I can't pull the words from my deep memory. I know what it is, but not what it's called. This makes creating new memories hard because I can't put words to things. Edit, I'm getting a lot of comments. Here's some info. 1. If you have this or any type of aphasia but are not on meds and have no trauma, see a doctor. Aphasia that isn't linked to medication or a psychological issue is likely caused by head trauma, like a car accident, or a stroke. It's best to get that seen and treated so there's no progression of the injury. There's also the possibility of early signs of Alzheimer's. 2. Please read the discussion below from other people on Topamax, and or who have ADHD, and are struggling to cope. There's a lot of good ideas below. You could also post on r/disability to tap into the community of people who share your struggles. 3. It's going to be okay. Do the best you can. Not wanting to bring up anything from their past. And just smiling when asked. That's me right there. I'm a master at changing the topic or distracting from a convo I don't like. I am willing to share past negative experiences with people to let them know you can survive fucked up situations and it's okay to talk about it and to work through it. My dad was an alcoholic. My parents were abusive towards each other. I see signs in other people's lives and to be there for them and let them know there is nothing to be ashamed of when it comes to seeking help or support. But there are darker parts of my childhood I don't even talk to my husband about. There are some experiences better left in a box and not opened, especially when you don't know how people might react to it or if they will see you as different once you open that box. Disproportionate reactions. Their reactions to most things are normal or even low-key, but occasionally they have a huge response to something minor. Key sign of trauma. Yes. After my trauma I've almost always been unruffled by all the petty BS that non-traumatized people get uppity about. Then when a few nuisances start piling up in my life I'll randomly snap because haven't I dealt with enough already? This right here. And the one is often because of the other. We're so used to any reaction resulting in more pain that we push it down and bottle it up, so our reaction to things is minimal. Then finally that one thing happens that's an inch too far and you physically can't push it down anymore, and all that stifled emotion comes out at once over something trivial. Oh Christ, I had this the other day. Had something that I'd boxed away long ago get dragged up, about a week before, had been struggling but putting on a strong face. Couple that with my girlfriend starting work triggering the abandonment issues I apparently have, as a result of the same trauma, and I was pushing down hard. Anyways, a few days later I've baked some muffins. Girlfriend forgets her keys so I let her in and in that time a seagull has flown in and knocked over my muffins. I cannot describe the overwhelming fury I felt, to the degree of a narrowly contained violent outburst. Screaming, shouting, swearing, narrowly avoiding punching a flatmate at the mention of good vibes and punching my bed so hard my knuckles bled. Hard to do with a bed. It took me about 5 hours to calm, over some knocked over muffins. Most of the muffins were still fine, and as it turns out the muffins had turned out pretty poorly. I put in far too many dry ingredients, but still, bleeding knuckles and a 5-hour rage caused by a couple of knocked over muffins. When shit goes down, they know what to do. It can be really upsetting to know what to do when you just want somebody else to take care of it for once. You brush it off and are like, well, shit, guess only person going to get me out of this is me. I've always wished for an older sibling to help guide and protect me. Shit goes down on them pretty often to not be ready. It's become routine, because of the lack of stability in their everyday life. When you see someone deal with something extremely emotionally damaging or physically painful and they act like they don't even notice it, like nothing's changed. When you see that you know they've seen the worst and nothing is gonna get to them. Or they are currently depressed. My buddy came back from deployment this way. Zero emotion left after. Wife left with his kids and he just acted like he never had them in his life at all. His mom died maybe a year later, and he didn't even respond to it. Just kept his routine of drinking until he fell asleep. How's he doing now? Reacting to things inappropriately, either in scale or in nature. They'll overreact or underreact, or they'll do things like laugh, unironically, at awful things. One example is a friend laughing and saying it isn't a proper Thanksgiving dinner unless someone pulls a knife. His drunken dad held a knife against his neck while angrily admonishing him about something. Humans are good rationalizers. If we're frequently exposed to awful things they become normal. Fucking hell. Noodle burner, you might be in hell right now but you routinely rationalize it to be okay. Right on the money. I keep seeing everyone say when someone doesn't react / is neutral. For my sisters and I it's opposite. My nervous system is damaged so I often panic over small inconveniences that register to my brain as a perceived threat. To my peace and ultimately my safety. BC I've tried to kilometers when not at peace. Difficulty putting themselves first. I'm checking a lot of boxes in the comments, especially this one. I'm curious why? What if I just feel like I'm not that important or my needs are inconsequential compared to others and I can survive fine without meeting all my needs? Sure, things won't be great and I'll have gnawing want, but unless I can do it for myself, I would feel horribly guilty and indebted to others even for the most minuscule of things. Edit. To add to this is being exposed to me often at my new job. I'm constantly putting my projects below other people's needs. Someone emails asking for help on their task? I'm on it immediately. If I need assistance with research or writing for a hot deadline, I can't ask for help because that'll impact everyone else and I don't want to be responsible for that. However, if I'm impacted, that's acceptable. It's a sign of neglect. Basically, when a child gets taught that their needs either don't matter or that their needs cause undue burden on their caretakers, e.g. parents, then they prioritize their needs lower. Further, if their caretakers are emotionally negligent, then the child might learn that they can get some attention by prioritizing the caretaker's needs above their own. Thinking you are telling a fun childhood or military or whatever anecdote / story and looking up to realize from your friends' faces and shocked silence that it is indeed not a fun story and it's actually pretty effed. My coworker said the best thing about your childhood was that it ended after hearing lots of my funny stories. I'm a paramedic. People always ask what's the worst thing you've seen? I used to just tell some slightly gross story to appease them. Now I tell the stories that give me the nightmares. It shuts them up and I get some free therapy. Win-win. Nurse. My wife told me I'm not allowed to talk about work with friends anymore, and to try to limit it with her. I try to pick the funner stories. None of them are fun stories. Paying very close attention to people's expressions and body language, mostly to see if they're annoyed / angry, underreacting to things, and over-explaining things that probably seem inconsequential to most. And #X200B. The first part is not wanting to set someone off. In tandem with this, most underreact because any expressions of unhappiness or anything that can be perceived as negative usually gets taken as an invitation to be unloaded upon or to have someone upset displace their anger, and then you end up the target of a tirade. A lot of people, myself included, over-explain things because it's a defense mechanism in anticipation of being yelled at or being very harshly criticized because the other person tries to pin the blame on you, even for things out of your control, which is why one over-explains. And #X200B. Edit, as others mentioned, that I forgot because I've been actively working to counteract these, apologizing too much and, at least for me, not being able to joke. People constantly point out that I take everything very seriously or that I don't laugh / don't joke well. It's because I've had moments where someone said something so ridiculous and illogical, I think it must be a joke. But they weren't joking and they got quite mad, so from then on, I simply took everything seriously and at face value because on the off chance it wasn't meant to be a joke, I would at least not be yelled at. It's quite scary as a child when you are told something that sounds absurd, you think it must be for comedic value and then react in that way, but then it's just hours of berating later. It's like walking into an ambush. You learn not to risk it. Also, thank you guys for the replies, comments, awards. I've thanked generous awarders and explained to them, but I'll say it here, I'm sad people could relate to this. All your comments about seeing yourselves in this were hard. But at the same time, I am glad you all felt seen and understood. It's more important to me that you all realize you're not alone in your experiences. I hope you're all doing better. I just posted this above. A finely tuned radar for others' emotions. Not just in faces. In footsteps, posture, voices, eyes, hands. If my mom came home and shut the door a certain way, I went outside to play. If I was in my room and heard her come up the stairs a certain way, I knew I should just take the smack and apologize. For what? Who knows? But anticipation provides time to flee or diffuse conflict. The footsteps. Me too. I'm sorry that happened to you. It wasn't your fault. You didn't deserve it. When I get agitated, people think I'm angry. I'm not. 98% of the time I'm feeling distress. Anger is easy to deal with. Don't like being touched. I like being touched by people I know and trust. It's comforting. I trust like 5 people. Let me just say the social distancing over the last couple of years, with the face masks, and the hand washing has been bliss for me. The number of times I have to tell people not to touch me is astounding, and it's so rare that they bother to remember. I really appreciate the people that only need to be told once. I hate having to tell people. I don't know why, but it feels mean.